The Oort Cloud was a place of shadow and mystery to even the wisest of demons. A light year from Terra Sol, its frigid isolation encased the nucleus of the solar system. The cloud's impossible size held many unknown things. Its denizens lived in the tales of fear among humans and demons alike, lurking as much in the urban legends of the core as in the deep depths of space. In the Oort Cloud, only two things kept you alive: fear and novelty. These were not sectors to swim in lightly. Humans and demons did not live in this space. They could only survive. A brutal existence, heat was everything in this abyss. The warmth of Terrasol's arms could only just graze the masses in the perimeter of the solar system. Still, humanity found a myriad of ways to claw out an existence here. Even in these conditions, life-giving energy can be found. Satra had only read of the life that inhabited this space. He recalled a lesson from years ago, tales of asteroids with beating hearts and mining colonies on dwarf planets. And above all, he heard tales of the bandit camps. Their inhabitants would jump between the inner system and the cloud to trade the strange spoils they found among this darkness. There were even folk tales of a large mechanical wyvern that swallowed comets whole, grinding their radioactive isotopes in its fusion core. Azra gained much of his power from his use of the Oort Cloud. Its oddities proved critical more than once in the god's long life of bargaining and war on the celestial stage. There was an impossibility to this kind of expanse to Satra. He had learned about all of this in school: cosmology, vacuum biology, cyberbionic history. The implanted tomes of information he had pored over in the final days of his low priesthood did nothing to prepare him for the crushing vastness of this cosmos. The new rank priest stared from the window in Omega Groth's stealth cruiser as it moved through one of the inner colonies of the Oort Cloud. The small ship's banner of Azra was removed from the cruiser's hull to avoid attracting any unwanted attention. Aboard the two-man vessel, the Azran priests sat in the darkness. Their faces stared towards the door, lit by the flashing displays of the craft. A quietness had fallen over them a week ago. Aside from the training lessons and navigational demands, the two men treated conversation as a tool, only used under strict necessity. When he did speak, Groth was a critically stern man in his teaching. In the 3 weeks of travel, Groth had left them no free time. Every available moment was spent maintaining the craft, performing biological duties, navigation, and study. Satra was amazed at the man's discipline. He scheduled every lesson down to the minute and wasted no time in any task. More machine than man. Satra could have set his watch to the Omega. Astrography, cultural acclimation, nucleonic propagation, and post-diplomacy calculus. The curriculum was sent from Azra himself to acclimate Satra to his new mission. The doors to the ship opened, and Satra tensed at the sudden movement. On the other side of the opening stood a local man. His physique had that of the core, much like the humans on old Terra. He sported a preened head of wavy brown hair, a tint of green in his skin, and a swagger in the way he moved. If Satra hadn't known where the man lived, he wouldn't have thought this man had any care in the world. Only his eyes told a different story than the rest of his body. They held a silver luster and an expression of distrust. Satra found that there was an uncertainty about them that he couldn't place. The man glanced at Satra like ice and gave a smile with a glint of poison. On the man's hip, Satra noted a silver pistol snugly fit into a holster, the hilt shimmering even in the low light of the ship. His clothes were worn and practical. An X pendant hung from his neck, the sign of an independent man. He was bound to no demon. "It's as simple as that, right? We just walk in and kill him?" The man rolled his eyes as he floated into the ship. "I hope you came with a little more than that. It's not much of a plan." He shoved the hard drive back into the hands of Omega Groth, who stared back unflinchingly. "Agent, I'm glad you're back. Please, sit," Groth said, flicking the ship's artificial gravity switch on. As the men sank into their bunks, Satra silently gave thanks to Azra. Gravity generators weren't a luxury Satra had been afforded in the long weeks since they had left his Demon Lord High. "You think it impossible for the priests?" Groth continued. Do I think you priests can kill a god? Agent scoffed. That's kind of what Ozra does, right? The Ord spy leaned back and pulled a stim from his uniform pocket, taking a long drag from it. Groth turned to Satra. Show him. Yes, Omega Groth, Satra said, scowling at the cloud of smoke that was developing around them. He moved to the cruiser's side panel and typed a request into it. The vessel whirred to life, and a beam of light came from the ceiling. In the middle of the men, a three-dimensional hologram of a large rock appeared. After they stared for a second, Satra continued. This is Yega, he said. It's a planet in the Kuiper Belt. On the projection, Satra saw cities growing on the surface of the rock. The homes of millions twinkled against the planet's cool blue surface. Agent squinted and looked between the two priests. He spoke slowly. Yeah, I know Yega. Dirty place to infiltrate for the price you're paying. Satra nodded. We are willing to bargain a small amount on the price. Ozra has a particular interest in having this demon killed. Of course, higher rewards come with higher expectations, Agent. Agent grinned and nodded his head. Don't you worry about me. I can handle my own. But killing a planet is a big ask. Yega is a Class 23 demon. Satra zoomed out from the planet. Approximately the size of Mars. Azra does not want to go to war with Yega. It would be unfortunate for both of us. He typed on the ship's interface again. It's not Yega that we're after. It's a satellite. Agent's face fell as the hologram moved to reveal a giant red cylinder floating in space, orbiting Yega. The crimson tube rotated in the hologram as the man continued. This is our target. The Red Dawn. I take it you need no introduction? Agent looked back to the men. The crimson light of the hologram framed the angry scowl on his face. The Red Dawn, huh? Agent leaned forward, looking at the demon. So this is why you came to the Orc Cloud. You want a cheaper price. Satra shook his head. We won't hide that we know the hatred between your people and his. Agent squinted before taking a slow drag of the stem. Blowing out, he stared at the demon in the hologram. Don't go yanking my chain here, fellas. You got some way of getting in that son of a bitch? There was a long silence while the smoke filled the cabin. My uncles died in that war. More silence. Satra knew Groth wanted him to stew in this information for as long as he could bear it. Finally, Agent looked at Satra and smirked. What's Ozra's grudge with him? That is business of Ozra, Satra said quickly. Like hell it is, Agent said. You want to go in on this together? You're not going to keep that kind of shit from me. You spill or I walk. Satra looked to Groth. After a moment, the Omega turned back to the mercenary and spoke in a measured tone. He stole something from Ozra. What? Agent said. Silicon, Groth lied. There was a shipment coming back from Vega. He stole it. That doesn't sit right with the demon High Ozra. A silicon shipment? Agent paused a moment, finally looking back to the hologram. I haven't seen this guy in 20 years. Nasty bugger's gotten bigger since we fled that sector. Satra nodded. Well, he's gone from a Class 10 to a Class 11 demon since he killed your people. Roughly 80 million people living on his surface. He has far more supporters on Yega, though. Agent raised an eyebrow. Supporters, huh? Does that brainless flock of parrots still have their beaks up his ass? Satra rolled his eyes at the crudeness. You could put it that way, if you must. The Red Dawn has used a wide variety of techniques to produce his ecosystem. He's been running the city-state for nearly a decade now. Since then, he's gained a bit of power. Too much power, actually. Yega hasn't been appreciating his followers' zeal. They've been a nuisance to Yega thus far, but things haven't come to blows just yet. The hologram moved to show the inside of the cylinder. Within the walls of the Red Dawn, a megalopolis grew like a mold. Satra began again. He's much smaller than Yega, but he's got a secret weapon. This is his pile of gold. Picutia. It's a supermassive city with a bit of a reputation. You name the vice, it has it in spades. Gambling, sex, simulations, every kind of drug under Terra passes through the place. You want a memory implant? They can do it. Sounds peachy. Agent took another drag from his stem. Satra ignored the growing smoke in the cabin with strained effort. The city generates untold wealth for the Red Dawn. Picutia is his crown jewel, a den of vices, backstabbing, and stifling social stratification. Jaeger doesn't exactly like that. The larger demon has made its disdain of the Red Dawn pretty clear over the last year, but can't go to war with the Red Demon without the other cities in its orbit rebelling. So Jaeger hired the hit, Agent said. Satra flipped the footage over to a new headline. Not exactly. As luck would have it, the two demons are in a feud. A bit of a family spat, if you will. The image of a hollow asteroid floated on the screen. This was another one of the cities that orbited Jaeger. The Red Dawn killed 6 million people on it last month. So the Red Dawn didn't stop with my people, huh? Still got that genocidal bug, I guess. Satra gave Agent a blank stare. So it would seem. Agent nodded. So let me get this straight. Y'all want me to fly into a beehive and kill the queen. Sounds a little more dangerous than a simple assassination attempt. Satra nodded. For now, what you need to know is this. As far as the Red Dawn knows, he currently has a positive business relationship with Azra. The two demons have maintained an active trade route in the past. That gives us an element of surprise. I see now. Dirty tactics. Agent exhaled. Another cloud of smoke billowed into the tiny room, causing Satra to clench his fist and grumble. He sneered at the man before returning to the hologram. The shape of a brown spherical object appeared. It looked wooden with imperfect symmetry and a rough surface. The cracks in the object's shell glowed green on the hologram. Satra lowered his voice to speak again. Azra has designed a weapon to take care of this demon. A bomb? Agent said, raising an eyebrow. Not quite. The weapon is a specialty of our Demon Lord High and his priests. A nucleonic. Nucleonic, Agent said, sounding the foreign word out. You might understand them as plants. They've been adapted to harness the power of radiation. And how powerful are these nucleonics? Satra changed the hologram to a video of a large asteroid. The opening shot held a sprawling city of life clinging to a small demon. A minute later, a mass of green had overtaken half of the asteroid like a ravenous green mold. This particular nucleonic is a demon killer. More effective than a fusion bomb if you make it right. The plant absorbs everything in its path like a vampire. The subatomic alterations to its biology are to thank. The beauty of these things is that unlike a fusion bomb, you can recycle all the materials with a nucleonic. This particular nucleonic is a weed. Groth handed a glowing seed to Agent. It feeds on silicon and steel. Once we detonate it within the heart of the Red Dawn, the entire demon will be consumed in a day. But, in order for the seed's explosive growth to work properly, it must be detonated inside the Red Dawn's nucleoid. That's where his processing centers and data banks are. If the seed doesn't have the rich nutrient source of the servers, it will die within a minute of detonation. Agent looked down to the thing in his hands, then to the hologram. The horrific plant had fully taken over the asteroid. All 10 million people living on its surface killed within minutes. They were swallowed in a tidal wave of greenery, their last moments a terrifying and confusing death. It's just a prototype, of course, Satra said, smirking at the man gingerly handing back the weapon. I knew that, Agent said, though Satra had a hard time believing him. I can get you into those processing centers, priests, but it's gonna cost you. Satra grinned. We were hoping you'd say that.